This video is going to look at the impact of population change in rural areas within the UK, which is this kind of slightly odd element of the UK aspect of economic world unit. Okay, but it is something that we do need to understand. And what we're going to look at what's happening and what are the positive and negative impacts of an area of population growth. And for that, we're going to be looking at Hurstpierre Point in Sussex. Okay, and then we're going to be looking at what the impacts of population decline in a rural area. And we're going to be looking at Capel Dewey, a small rural village in Wales, to see what the impacts there have been. So if we start with Hurstpierre Point, okay, what we've done here is we've categorised the impacts of the positive, negative, social and economic. So if we start off with the social impacts, one of the positives is that a growing population in rural areas means an increase in demand for public services. Whilst this can put a strain on services, which we'll look at in a second, it does mean things such as local schools, community centres, doctors, surgeries and so on are going to have the income and business required to survive, which in some rural areas is not the case. However, on the negative, what we generally see is that areas experiencing rural population growth normally experience an influx of retirement-age people. These are generally the people that can afford to live in these rural areas, okay, and having worked in the cities are now looking for an improved lifestyle. What this results in is an ageing population in our rural areas, okay, and subsequently an increase in demand on services such as healthcare, which can put a strain on the local economy. Okay. Also, we see a decrease in young people as they cannot afford rising house prices. We'll look at that in a second. Okay, so that only adds to that problem of an ageing population. There's also potential loss of sense of community as kind of outsiders move into the rural village. Now, in terms of the economic impacts, there is a significant increase in house prices. So if we take Hurstpierre Point, since 2015, house prices have risen by up to 20%. And now the average house price is around £550,000. Now that is a positive if you're a seller. If you live there, you're going to be quite happy to see your house price going up because it means that your kind of capital and your equity is going to be increasing. However, if you're looking to move into the area, particularly if you're a young person or a young person who's lived there and wants to stay in the village once they leave home, it basically means that in general the housing market is unaffordable and inaccessible for you. So it can be considered a positive and a negative. Other positive economic impacts is that new residents generally bring in new energy and ideas to the village, creating new businesses. Okay, there's also demand for local shops. So, for example, quite rare for a rural village, Hurstpierre Point currently has no empty shops on its high street. Generally as well, the people that move in, if they are, as we said, retired, they maybe have paid off their mortgage, they've got maybe quite a large pension, they must have if they're affording houses at £550,000. This means that they have more leisure time and more disposable income to invest in the local economy, and as a result the local economy booms and grows as a result of this. If we then move over into the impacts of population decline, okay, so we're looking at Capel Dewey in Wales. Now this is experiencing quite significant population decline, but there are some similar impacts out of interest. So for example, generally a lack of social and economic opportunities, so social life and jobs, means that young people move out of the area. This results in an ageing population, and again that increased demand on public services such as healthcare. Okay. There is, however, a few suggested positives. Okay. There generally is an increase in sense of community with those that are left behind, and we do see that in a lot of rural areas experiencing population decline. Those that are left do stay there. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a second. Okay. Apologies, I put this one into the wrong one. But what we do see as well is a loss of public transport services to rural areas. Providing bus services or railway links into rural areas is generally quite expensive for providers, and they only do this in the case of where there is a large enough population in that rural areas to make it worthwhile. As more people leave, maybe there's less use of the public transport systems, and therefore the providers cut down the service. So what we can see is that rural areas start to become isolated, so that should be in a negative over there. Okay. Economically wise, we see a decreased demand for local services, and therefore businesses generally shut. Again, apologies, put this in the positive, should have been over here in the negative, hence the arrow. As an example of that, Capel Dewey actually only has one shop left in the village. Okay, and this comes back to the idea of an increase in sense of community. The shop is actually run by the local people and by volunteers. Those people that work in the shop do not get paid, but the profit from the shop goes back into investing in the local community. Okay. What we do see as a negative economic thing is house prices go down as people wish to move out, and the area becomes less popular. As I said, local sort of expertise and businesses also leave the area because there's no demand for their service, and as we see, businesses and the local economy starts to decline.